Welcome to Plain English, the podcast that goes at the right speed for English language learners. Listen now and read the transcript online at plainenglish.com. Now, here's Jeff, your host for today's episode.
Happy 80th birthday to Superman. Hey everyone, I'm Jeff, and this is Plain English, the podcast that goes at the right speed for English learners. On today's episode, Action Comics is honoring the 80th anniversary of its first ever issue, which featured a new character called Superman on its cover. Superman has shown his staying power over the years, and staying power is the phrase that we'll talk about in more detail in the second part of today's program. Today is episode 44, so you can find the transcript of the program on the website at plainenglish.com/44. The transcripts have instant translations of difficult words and phrases from English to Portuguese, Spanish, French, and Chinese. So if you speak any of those languages, then I know you'll benefit from the translations on the website, plainenglish.com/44. A brand new comic book called Action Comics hit the newsstands with a new character on the cover. A man in a blue uniform and a red cape lifting up a green car so people could escape from being trapped underneath it. Little did teenage creators Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster realize at the time, but their character in the emblematic red S on a yellow background would become one of the longest-running comic characters and the defining character of a new genre, the superhero. On April 18th, 1938, 80 years ago exactly, Superman became the first superhero to appear in the comics. His mission was to use his powers of X-ray vision, speed, strength, and the ability to fly to save humanity from anything that threatens it. He stood up for people with little strength or power, including mistreated wives and minors who worked in dangerous conditions. He appeared during a period in the United States called the Great Depression, the worst economic time in our history, and he served the reading public's need for optimism in a bleak world. The creators were two high school kids from Cleveland, Ohio, Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster. They created the character to reflect their secret desire to have superpowers to attract girls. Some things never change, right? They added a unique twist to their character, his secret identity. In real life, he was the mild-mannered Clark Kent, a newspaper reporter at the Daily Planet in the city of Metropolis. He had normal struggles of an average person. He was secretly in love with another reporter at the paper, Lois Lane. But Lois's true love was the Man of Steel, Superman himself, though Clark Kent could never tell her about his secret identity. Superman would be followed later by other superheroes such as Batman, Wonder Woman, Spider-Man, and others, but he would remain the original and the most enduring of the superhero genre. Other characters followed a similar template. The main hero had special powers and was pitted against villains who had special powers of their own. Superman had been notable for his staying power. He has remained popular over the years. He's been in the movies, in radio series before movies were popular, then television shows, and in cartoons. You can find his image on cereal boxes, toys, advertising, and now video games. Even today, the character still appears in the movies and is instantly recognizable. In one of the interviews I read, someone asked an interesting question. How many things from 1938 are still popular today? Music and movies from that time are hard to find, but kids still wear t-shirts with the famous Superman S on their chests. Henry Cavill, who played Superman in the most recent movies, posted an illustration on Instagram showing what he thinks an 80-year-old Superman looks like. In his post, he wrote, "Superman paved the way for all of our favorite heroes. Within us," he said, "Superman will live no matter how old he gets." Action Comics is marking the anniversary with its 1000th issue, a hardcover book that has essays, tributes, and reprints of classic Superman comics. It's not an exaggeration to say that Superman launched the comic book industry. Prior to that first issue, comics were small strips in newspapers, and most comic books were just reprints of the newspaper comics. But sales of the first Superman issue were so strong that others started publishing comic books too. That first issue sold its original 200,000 copies quickly, and soon it would be selling 1 million copies a month. Here's a funny anecdote. Like most comic books at the time, Action Comics #1 was an anthology, meaning that it had Superman in its first 13 pages, but also had 10 other features in its 64 pages in total. The editors didn't know that the Superman feature would be popular. They only put it on the cover since it came with such a colorful illustration. By the way, an original copy of that first issue sold in 2014 for over $3 million, the most ever paid for a single copy of a comic book. Its newsstand price was 10 cents, or the equivalent of only $2 today. Today's episode is dedicated to Janie. She's from Colombia, but lives in London, Ontario, not too far from here, maybe a 5 or 6 hour drive from where I live. She wrote to say that she likes listening to plain English, but doesn't like to hear bad news. Now, I'll be the first to admit that a few of the episodes lately have been about depressing things, death, corruption, things like that. So I'm happy to dedicate this purely good news episode to Janie. Thanks for listening, and congratulations on surviving your first winter up here in the north. I also wanted to say thank you to Lorena from Argentina, who gave Plain English a 5-star review on Facebook. If you'd like to leave a review on Facebook or send me a note, you can find the show on there under the username Plain English Pod. Before we get to today's word, you might have heard me use the phrasal verb pit against. Superheroes are often pitted against villains who themselves have supernatural powers. If you want to hear an explanation of pit against, you can go back and listen to episode 17 of Plain English. Check out plainenglish.com/17 for that episode. This week's phrase is staying power. The Superman character has staying power because he was popular in 1938 and has remained popular throughout the years. You know how some things are popular for just a short period of time and then people forget them? That's the opposite of staying power. Something has staying power if it endures, if it remains popular or effective or powerful over a long period of time. What else besides Superman has staying power? Some consumer brands have staying power. Think about Nike and Apple. Those are brands that have been popular even as their industries have changed over the years. Here's another example. The tennis star Serena Williams has staying power in a number of ways. First, she's had a long and successful career as a tennis player, but she has transformed herself into a fashion icon, author, philanthropist, and has even appeared in movies and music videos. She's about to release a new documentary based on her life. She definitely has staying power, remaining in the public eye and staying active in many things beyond her tennis career. That's all for today's episode of Plain English. If you enjoy listening to the episodes, you might like to be on the email list. For each episode, I send out links to the English language articles I use to prepare the show. So if you're interested in the main topic, you can read more about it in English by following the links I send out. If that sounds like it would be interesting to you, just go to plainenglish.com/mail, plainenglish.com/mail, and enter your details. That's all for now. See you Thursday.